In a world where most people watch movies and then forget about them, these brave heroes join forces to watch them again and then talk about them. Join them in their epic journey as they go back in time, a decade and beyond, to revisit and break down films from a vast array of genres. Do these movies hold up over time? Are they classics? Find out on Retro Movie Roundtable. Starring your hosts, Bryan Frye, Chad Robinson, Dustin Melbardis, Lizzie Haynes, and Russell Guest. Coming now to headphones in your ears.
Welcome, all you lords, ladies, and knights of the Retro Movie Roundtable, where we watch movies and then talk about them. I'm your host, Dustin Melbardis, and joining me today is my good friend and co-host, Bryan Frye. Bryan, how are you?
Hey, doing well. Pleasure to be here.
I got something to share with you, man. Something terrible. I lost in the Fantasy Basketball Championship by 0.5 points.
Oh.
By 0.5 points.
I'll admit I stopped watching in sorrow.
It was tough, man. I tried to finesse the last 5 days. I was up by like 120. And I switched out some players that only had 2 games remaining for players with 3 games remaining. Like, oh, this is smart. This is good. End up these guys that jumped on the team, they got hurt, and I didn't have the space to replace them. I beat myself. It was awful. If that's the kind of basketball or fantasy talk that you like, listeners, then make sure to comment on our show's pages and tell us we want more of that. Retro Movie Roundball is still on the table for 2025. If you liked our Coach Carter episode and you wonder why we're over 300 episodes and we haven't done more basketball, hit us up in the YouTube comments. Tell us. I want to do more basketball. If you let us go, we're going to end up doing way more basketball talk than we're supposed to, especially with Bryan on.
Oh, yeah.
But, hey, ladies and gentlemen, we have already heard from her a couple of times now. She is my Texas cohort on the other side of the state. Please say hello again to Jennifer Bratton. How are you?
I'm pretty good today. How are you?
I'm very, very good. You like basketball, Jennifer?
I love basketball. My son played basketball.
And there's a lot to be happy for this year with the Houston Cougars playing so well.
Take your word on that. Just gonna take your word on that one, okay?
Basketball movies are good.
They are good.
Basketball movies are enthralling, even if you aren't a basketball fan.
I mean, I really can't think of a bad basketball movie.
I know that our co-host Chad absolutely loves Air Bud and all the Air Buds.
Stop. He was flying like Mike. That dog got some air.
That dog got some air, that's for sure.
Impressed.
Well, buckle up, everybody. It's a dealer's choice episode, and we are returning back to the world of Kung Fu. Hey, Jennifer, what's the last movie that you saw?
The last movie I saw, The 7-Year Itch. I rewatched it yesterday.
Good. With 7-Year Itch and then with Gentlemen Prefer Blondes is that we've got sort of a Marilyn Monroe period of Hollywood that, to be honest, her aura and her legacy, to me, has always seemed far greater than her impact for movies. But I think one of these days we'll have to cover one of these movies and really dive deep and see what all the hubbub is about. Bryan, what's the last movie you saw?
Definitely do that.
It's a World War II movie called The Man with the Iron Heart. It's basically a movie about the resistance during World War II, right at the beginning of the German grip on Europe.
Mm-hmm. Is it a recommendation?
I mean, maybe one of these days. I've got a very long list of dealer's choices before I think I get to this one, but it was enjoyable enough. But I will also give another superlative. I've just started watching Midnight Mass on Netflix, and that show is awesome.
Maybe we'll pick it up for a Retro TV Roundtable one of these days.
Yeah, we should definitely have one of those.
For
retro miniseries roundtable.
Retro miniseries Roundtable, that would work too. The last movie I saw, I was in a kung fu mood, surprise, surprise, and I watched something from 1975 called Master of the Flying Guillotine. It is
excellent.
It is about a group of 12 assassins training to eliminate the enemies of the Emperor with a crazy new weapon, like a flying guillotine. But one of them grows a conscience and runs off. So his hunters are his friends that he was training with. And so sometimes with kung fu movies, you don't get that much of a plot, but there's actually quite a bit of drama in this one.
This freaking guy named Dustin in Austin, Texas, okay? Like,
Oh no.
made me watch this movie, and like I didn't have time, so I was watching it with my son because I was like, okay, yeah, there's like not bad words. And he's 4, and he got really inspired. You know, he put down his dinosaurs for this business. And then, like, for some reason, he thought that he could suddenly have the ability to like jump off the top of the bar, like carrying a big box, like which added more to his catapult, you know? So when he hit the trampoline, all I saw was just like flying in the air. And there had to have been a flip because I don't know how, but he hit the back of his head and we ended up in the ER. So I didn't get any sleep because of somebody named Dustin who's like recommending kung fu movies to 4-year-olds. Thanks a lot.
And now we see the full impact of this cinema is that it can distract your children into making dangerous decisions. I'm sorry, Jennifer. Bryan, what movie are we covering tonight?
We are watching 36th Camber of the Shaolin.
From 1978, starring Gordon Liu and Lieh. This movie we don't have any box office information for because it came from those Hong Kong studios, but the number 1 movie that year was Star Wars Episode 5, The Empire Strikes Back. This movie has a 7.6 IMDb rating. For Rotten Tomatoes, the critics' tomato meter is 83%, and the audience score is slightly higher at 89%. Now, we don't have any information about what awards it won. However, this is one of those movies that has long-lasting impact. It is widely considered to be one of the greatest kung fu films ever made, extremely highly influential to other actors and also other musicians. In 2021, Complex ranked the 36th Camber of Shaolin number 5 in a list of the 24 best kung fu movies of all time. People hold this in very high regard. Now, normally, this is where I would ask our guest to give us their expectations coming into this movie for the first time, or their background with this kind of genre. But we are going to skip that today. Bryan, I am going to ask you, and we're skipping it today because I actually want to really dive into this with Jennifer after our ad break. But Bryan, had you heard of this movie and had you seen it before?
Yes. Actually, there was a little bit of a rocky point where I wasn't sure until I'd rewatched it. And yeah, I definitely watched this back in college. As a regular, everyday Wu-Tang fan, I was a little chagrined to think I hadn't seen it yet.
Mm.
Yeah, I've seen this before. It's awesome. I love kung fu movies. It also got me kind of on a tear of martial arts movies. I ended up watching Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, and Hero since watching this the first time around. So,
oh, cool.
Yeah, man, it definitely it gets you in the mood.
And it's funny the way that you described that, because I agree is when you get sucked into these worlds, it doesn't matter if we're talking about Qing Dynasty, Meiji area in Japan, Taiwan, Hong Kong, Manchuria. It doesn't really matter. You get sort of sucked into this style of movie and you want to watch another one, whether it's another one that's new or one that you're used to again. And I don't know many other movie genres that have this exact same kind of, if you're in the mood for kung fu, you're generally in the mood for a lot of it, which is kind of fun. I chose this movie for my dealer's choice because I had not seen it. I know that I think in my history on the show, I'm the one that chooses kung fu the most, and it's not every time, but I wanted to make sure I was serving up something good, which is why I consulted the internet and found something that was meant to be extremely influential to the genre, and something that in our discussions with our other hosts and with some of our other guests, I'm glad to be able to serve this up. I did enjoy it when I watched it just a couple nights ago, and I am ready to talk about it, but we're not talking about it yet. We've got to take a little break. We're going to give a little ad read from one of our friends. When we come back, Bryan is going to spoil this movie with a plot summary, so stay tuned. See you on the other side.
Welcome to the All 80s Movies Podcast.
I'm Bill.
And I'm Jason. And this is the podcast where we talk about the blockbusters, the flops, and everything in between from one of the freshest decades for movies, the 1980s. So whether you're a brain, a jock, a valley girl, or a Jedi, we've got some 80s classics for you.
Do these movies stand the test of time? Are we discovering something new? Is there an 80s movie we're finally watching for the first time?
Join us each week as we dive into the cinematic nostalgia that inspired and influenced a generation. From the hits to the cult classics, we'll discuss our earliest memories, favorite scenes, fun facts, and our not-so-favorite movie moments too.
It's the All 80s Movies Podcast, now available on all major streaming platforms. Please subscribe and happy listening.
And we are back with your final warning. If you have not seen from 1978 the 36th Chamber of Shaolin, you need to pause us and then come back to us later after you've watched it, because right now it's time for Bryan to reveal the plot summary of this movie. Take it away.
I'll also give a little nod to TV tropes. I borrowed their plot summary for this one. A failed assassination attempt by a rebel leader inspires some young men to join the local Canton rebellion, only for the Manchu government to find out about their involvement. In order to crush the local rebellion, they begin a brutal campaign to exterminate the rebels, leaving one wounded and desperate student, Liu Yidi, to seek refuge at a secret monastery where he changes his name to Santi. Fueled by his desire for justice over the loss of his family and friends at the hands of the Manchu, he undergoes a grueling program of martial arts training that hones his strength, agility, and endurance in order to defeat his enemies.
You know, nice, short, and sweet there as to exactly what happens in this movie. And I think normally this is where I would take my time in the host chair to go off on the plot in a row. But we have a really special opportunity here, is that Jennifer, our guest today, doesn't have much of a history here. So I was thinking I can't wait to talk to you guys about this movie, but really I wanted to learn something about you. Jennifer, you had said this movie wasn't what you were expecting at all. This was in a text from a couple of days ago. So I got to ask, what was your expectation?
That's an interesting question, because I don't really think that I had one. When you sent the movie, like I literally, like first thing I did, I like took a screenshot and had to send it to my daughter because I was like, look what I have to watch. Like for real, I have to watch this movie. Because it is so, like, if you just know me, I don't do like fighting. I'm not a violence person, you know, I'm more of like an indie flick type person. I was genuinely surprised at how much I actually enjoyed the plot of the movie. The opening scene, like I was like captivated from the beginning when the guy was doing all the things, you know, with the water, with the like the bracelets on, you know, I'm sure there's
we have a cool title sequence, where
I'm sure that like there's a great word for that, but I don't know what it is. I was watching, I was like, this is like visually pretty. Like this is like artistic. I like watching this, you know, like I really like to watch like contemporary dance. Then I like had to sit back for a second. I was like, okay, well maybe that's why I call it martial arts, because it's like artistic, like you know what I mean? Like, don't know why I didn't think about that. But I guess I just really honestly thought that it was just going to be a lot less talking and a whole lot more of the whoa, whoa, whoa. You know what I mean? Like I just thought that like I thought it was going to be like the first time I saw Les Miserables. I was like 14 and I saw it on Broadway and I had no idea what was going on. And like everybody died and you went home. You know what I mean? And so I kind of just figured that's what was going to happen. Everybody was going to die and then we were going to go home.
No, when you say that you're kind of an indie films kind of chick, does that mean that you don't generally have a desire to like pursue action movies or big fight movies?
I don't at all. You know, I mean, I'll watch them with my husband, and I'm generally like, he like can't watch them with me because if it's a stupid plot, I have to like poke holes in it. And he's just always like, why can't you just watch a movie for a movie? You know, but what I appreciate about movies like this is that like, it is just so honestly, it is so basic that there's not room for plot twists. The simplicity of it takes that out of it. And so in a way, that's my problem with a lot of action movies, is that it's so freaking unrealistic, like how they get themselves in these situations. But there was really nothing unrealistic about anything that went on in this movie. Like all of this could have actually really happened.
I think it's really cool to learn this from someone with zero expectations, is that you probably figured out that there would be fighting in it, that there would be martial arts. If you didn't know, then the first 3-minute title sequence shows you what they call that as a kata. Whenever you see a martial artist who is going through all of their moves, all of their punches and kicks and all that stuff without actually sparring anybody, what they are doing is performing a kata, which is all of the forms, all of the moves, all of the motions of what their martial arts look like in practice. So you're seeing a really artistic version of him fighting in the rain, of him fighting with different weapons. So that's meant to set the stage. You're going to see that. If generally when people watch a kung fu movie, they know what they're getting into. But this is kind of cool to talk to Jennifer. I was like, well, I didn't know there'd actually be a plot. I didn't know there'd actually be some tension or that there'd be dramatization of things that could really happen. And that's one of those like rare instances where you get to share essentially the basis for an entire genre to someone new. And so now that we talk about the entire genre, Bryan, let me kick it over to you. Let me ask you the same question about your expectations for this movie, but really also I'd love to hear about your expectations for Kung Fu movies in general. In a way, this is kind of like Kung Fu film school for Jennifer.
I'd say my number one thing in terms of expectations for Kung Fu movies or martial arts movies, period, is beauty. Like, I watch these movies for the artistic way that they show the areas in which they are based. There is nothing better. It's not even fighting for me. I mean, obviously there's an art to that piece too, but you watch some of House of Flying Daggers, Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. I mean, these are the locales, the settings for the fights, it's gorgeous. It puts you in a place that is almost ethereal and otherworldly. And that's my favorite part of this. Now, obviously this one's a little bit older. We don't have the cinematography and the dressing up of backgrounds and stuff the way we do now. But that doesn't really detract. It just means that you have a more minimalist take on it, and that's completely fine. But so that's my number one expectation is they're usually absolutely gorgeous films. Yeah, my number one thing I'm looking for is that cool fight scenes are cool fight scenes. I'm not saying every movie achieves the same goal, but I don't think I've ever seen one where I'm like, wow, that one really dropped the ball on fight scenes. So it's always a hyperbolic take on the actual martial arts, which is completely fine. Again, something I'm looking for. But it's a cultural piece. So I'm watching a snippet of how they choose to convey their society and their arts and their fighting styles. And that too is absolutely crucial to these films.
I agree with everything you said about the beauty or the setting, or sometimes it is the atmosphere. The monastery that we have in this has several different spaces, several different rooms, but it's essentially all just the same looking buildings. You compare that to something from the year 2000, like Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, where you are having fights on top of bamboo shoots that are hundreds of feet in the air. That all contributes to what you'd like to see. But I like what you said about culture, that here we do have historical fiction. In a lot of my favorite Kung Fu movies, you generally have some kind of depiction of a folk hero. The one that I generally like to talk about the most is Wong Fei-hung for the Drunken Master series. But your biggest names in Kung Fu movies, Jackie Chan, Jet Li, Donnie Yen, these guys have all played these historical figures where there's a certain pride in showing their life, their style, their inner peace, that kind of stuff. Somebody that matters to that culture. And then on top of that, there are times when in a movie such as this, where we are having a conflict, like a war/territory conflict between the Manchu-led invaders, and sometimes these are called the Tartars, and then the areas of Guangzhou, even though that's called Canton back then. Canton, the basis for Cantonese. It is okay for that information to kind of get lost. It's nice that they put the time into the accuracies, but it's okay to kind of get lost, because all we really need to know is there's an oppressive force and there are people that want to fight back for good. Jennifer, you talked about the plot, right? In that case, you don't have to remember which dynasty we're in or which part of China these people came from. All you really need to understand is we've got a bad occupying force and we have a young man who's trying to fight back against it. I think that's the kind of plot that everyone can get behind.
It's funny that you just said it doesn't matter exactly where it is, because I was literally over here trying to look up exactly where the setting is. Well, where is the setting? Like, I make really weird movie connections, like with the way things look. But to me, like in the movie, like in the scenes in the village, like I know totally two different movies, but it kind of had like a Fiddler on the Roof vibe. I would just have to explain like the way that it looked, like the city, like the little towns, the little folks, like the way it was filmed. And I was looking at, and like Fiddler on the Roof came out like a good solid 11 years before. So I was just curious, were they like a little bit more behind whenever it came out than like the United States was in movies?
It's an absolutely fair question, because what we're doing with tonight's show is talking about a movie that was produced overseas. We are really used to Hollywood and American movies. So if there's a production of Fiddler on the Roof that comes from Hollywood, what was available to the Hong Kong studios was much different, much lesser. That's not just cinematography, that's sound design, that's music. There are things about even the way the title screen comes up. There are things about what technology is available to them and widespread distribution. If you're saying this looks like it's somehow more dated than a movie that came out 10 years before, you're right on the money.
See, you said it just the way I was trying to say it, but I just couldn't get those words out. That's what I was trying to say.
Well, and that's where, when we get back to the plot here, is that, do you find yourself with our young student whose name is Liu, but then he adopts the name San-Tae, that his mission and his journey, how did that connect with you? Did you feel as if you could watch him and be like, I want him to succeed?
I mean, of course, he was like, likable because he was like a cute little boy, and you wanted to see him do good. I think just in general in the United States, we do not watch a lot of movies from China, period. You know what I mean? Like, just with the influx with Netflix, if we just now started, like, kids and people like me, like, are watching series that are, taking place over there.
I think you're absolutely correct. I think it's really, foreign film in general is very not just underappreciated, but also less available. It's less available. I feel like Netflix really spearheaded bringing Europe and Europe film. Like I'm intentionally not saying European, but I'm just saying, like, as a whole, even the series that they're pushing into our inboxes in a way is in an effort to be like, look, there's some gold out there. And I don't necessarily, I think you may be correct on this movie in particular, but film styles are like fingerprints. If you watch Scandinavian film, like, it's got a fingerprint. French film has a fingerprint. Italian film 100% has a fingerprint. So with all these different styles, with how they do it, everything looks a little bit different. And Dustin was right on the money saying, American film has a fingerprint, and we are so immersed in it. It's what we grew up on. It's what we see on TV all the time. So when we do see something different, we see that different fingerprint, we're like, oh, that's not what I'm used to.
I feel like in America, like, we have, like, overall just like I said, not have embraced the Chinese culture and their movies, obviously, like they have us. You know what I mean? Like, they've been consuming our movies for years. And so, like, it was just like cute to me in the way that, like, I know this sounds so stupid, but in the way that the schoolboys like interacted with each other were just still like so very much like that we interact with each other over here. And so, like, just to like see like the whole thing where, like, they're boys, like, on the brink of becoming men, I mean, that's like a general theme in like a lot of movies, like where they, decide they're going to become men. And what do you do when you become a man? You go out and you fight for your country. You know what I mean? I mean, we've seen that theme in like movies time and time and again. I thought it was like just sort of cute to watch. It's like the boys interact with each other being silly, and then with their relationship with the teacher, who I really liked him a lot.
There is a great opportunity to see similarities cross cultures when you are watching movies that are from overseas. And in this instance, you just mentioned that the students are rambunctious until the teacher shows up. Everybody shut up. Hey, we gotta sit down and be polite, and we have to listen to what Teacher Ho has to say. And we are shown pretty early that Teacher Ho is actually a revolutionary, a rebel. He is wanting to fight, really fight, not organize and protest, but fight against oppression. And that is something where it may not hold exactly the same with American movies, because we have been a world power for a very long time. When our boys go to fight for our country, they're going to fight somewhere else. In this instance, we're talking about our city is under siege by these people that we don't know, and they're so ruthless that in order to find one student, they're going to kill every other student and their families on the block. The stakes are extraordinarily high. And so, with this style of kung fu movie, you're going to have martial arts. They go hand in hand. but you're also going to have other things. And it makes me think that Kung Fu movies on the whole, and this is great for you, Jennifer, is that they are educational. Is that the movies have at their core almost always some kind of self-realization and self-discipline. Like if you take this concept and apply it to anything you do, then you can succeed. And so with this movie being like steeped in this lesson, we aren't really taught too much about, like fully about Buddhism. We're not fully taught about like the Shaolin way. There is potentially the understanding that you might know what Shaolin is, as far as understanding of self or what the Buddhist version of evil is. You might know that, but you don't have to. The movie shows that there's enough of sort of instruction and time that it takes in order to achieve this level of self-discipline. Bryan, is this something that when you see in Kung Fu movies, it's almost just like peanut butter and jelly? Like you expect your hero to have this kind of journey, even if it's like an inward journey.
Well, I think the really important thing about this movie specifically and how it relates to the plot is you have a very angry student going to a school that teaches compassion, empathy, sure, self-defense, but it's not a school for revenge. This is not a school for violence. I think in a lot of these movies, what you find is you've got your protagonist and he comes and either pretends to get it, to get the training or whatever, but you actually see a real change in his attitude. He really understands the Buddhist way, and he doesn't actually kill any of the people that he went there to seek revenge upon in the first place.
Right.
So
which would make you wonder about
I think it's not nonviolence for nonviolence sake.
Yeah, and there's very clearly we do see that change, and that change within him. Our Justice Abbot, kind of the guy who speaks kind of on behalf before you get to the elders. The Justice Abbot who fights with the two swords or the two knives. He says to Sun Te, he says to him, like, if you want to achieve sort of the mastership of one of these chambers, you got to fight me. And you would almost expect this character to say, I'll fight you anytime. But his first response is, I wouldn't dare. Because he has a respect for how things go here. That like, you're challenging me? No, I'm not here to challenge it. No. And that's after 3 years, 5 years, 7 years, where this understanding, like this peaceful understanding is, we know that the alternate title for this movie was Master Killer. But he's not a killer.
No, that would have been stupid.
Yeah, I read that and I was like, what a strange way. Like, you want to talk about like Americanization and lost in translation. Like, did you watch the movie before you retitled it that?
Yeah. Well, as far as this journey that he goes on, which is, initially it seems like it's steeped in vengeance. When he passes his trials, as many as he does, in record time, he asks to be able to teach this to the lay people. Is that I know that there's a world out there where the oppressed need some kind of fight back in them. Jennifer, when this was brought up by Sante, saying, I want to bring this back, were you excited to leave the monastery and see how he was going to impact the rest of his world?
Yeah, I mean, I was like having that Harry Potter feeling, you know what I mean? Like they'd been with like the defense against dark magic, you know what I mean? They were like, they had their like swords ready, they practiced, they were ready to go like, whips and tail. I mean, no, like for real, no, I'm going to have to say, I thought it was like the funniest scene. And I don't know why I thought this scene was so funny, but that he, like when he goes there to train, like he has to clean for a long time. Right. So they're just showing him like over there one day, just like sweeping the floor, whatever. And then the guy like just sort of like says something to him and he's like, I would like to train. And the guy was like, okay, you can train. I mean, it wasn't exactly like that, but I was like, dude, like you had to wait a whole freaking year just to tell the guy you wanted to train. Like, couldn't you have done that on day 3? You just wasted a whole year of sweeping the floor. Like he was down ready to let you train.
I look at that as a wax on, wax off moment. Like,
well, and this is where
the manual
have to describe that to Jennifer.
Yeah. So, Karate Kid, but the year of manual labor, the cleaning and everything, it's a conditioning piece to get him ready to actually survive these trial chambers of combat, because if he went straight in as a, as a civilian who's never really had to lift anything, then he wouldn't like it's like basic training. That year is basic training.
So it's like Hoosiers
disguised as ordinary
basketball in the running and Hoosiers.
Yeah, it's
that.
basic training disguised as domestication.
Yes. Well, and so I think what's really important is he brought up the Karate Kid, and at that point you go, I know that. Well, the best part about this is that though you came in, admittedly saying, I don't really know Kung Fu, I don't really know this genre, you do. And there's things that other genres have taken from Kung Fu as a cultural, as a genre of the idea of, think about Rocky. Rocky's training wouldn't be what Rocky's training is without the history of Kung Fu movies. You think about like the newer Creed versions of these movies, or you think about the Jean-Claude Van Damme stuff, is that this is a history of, in order to get what you want, you must work hard and train. Now, as a teacher of today's youth, I think you probably understand more than most that when you have the worlds of information on a little square that you keep in your pocket, that there are people that want to attain things quickly. And when it comes to Kung Fu movies, and when it comes to the hard work it takes to achieve, first of all, the basics, then the peace, and then we're going to give you 3 years before we even allow you to hold a weapon, that this is what it takes to prepare you for your journey ahead. Now, I just think that's such a cool lesson to take from these movies.
I would have never made it there because I hate to clean.
You might have made it there. Do you hate to clean more than you hate the oppression on your people? It's an interesting question.
I mean, my mouth would get me in trouble.
Jennifer, to your point on your mouth getting you into trouble during the training sequences, that's totally what happened to Daryl Hannah in Kill Bill Volume 2.
Right. Is that she didn't have the patience for the training, and then I think her master just plucks her eye right out.
Just pulls her eye out.
Just right out.
I just have to throw this in really quick because I teach high school. My favorite are the senior boys who are being like, as soon as I get out of school, I'm going to the military. And you'll be like, well, why are you going to the military? Because I'm sick of my parents telling me what to do. And I'm like, so you're getting
guess what?
Good luck with that, buddy.
I'm so glad that you brought up the Kill Bill reference, because if our listeners, our keen-eyed listeners, might know that Gordon Liu, who plays our Sante, is Pai Mei in Kill Bill 2. The master with the long beard that he strokes, that is him 40 years
That's my goal. I just want to tell you, that's my goal with this, by the way.
Oh, with your beard, you're growing.
One day I just want to be able to do the throw it over my shoulder.
Yeah. We have, with the journey that our Sante takes, we had initially brought up the plot is that he goes through his long time of training, returns back to his city, and there takes out a couple of lieutenants and then the big bad general. This is how he is able to bring a certain type of salvation back to outside the monastery walls. And in doing so, he is able to create the namesake of the movie, the 36th Chamber of Shaolin. Is that there is a need, or at least a duty, for the Buddhist principles of the Shaolin monastery, that you devote all of this time to any of the other chambers. There should be time and resource that is attributed to helping the layperson be able to fight back against oppression. That's kind of exactly what you want from a Kung Fu movie, is that the oppressed can fight back, or that evil is undone.
But this was like a really good movie for that, though. Like, if I was going to be a high school teacher and teach the concept of that and try to do it across genres, across like whatever, this would be a movie I would definitely bring in, because the themes are so universal.
I'm not sure, historically speaking, where this specific plot came from. Like, I don't know if this was the first movie to take a role at this. Obviously, you have good over evil, or guy loses everything only to come back stronger and wiser. But I just mean in general, in terms of Kung Fu movies, where this fell in terms of that specific trope I'm just wondering where this falls in the trope line for this technical plot. Because you could say that if it were, let's say it were the first to do this, that it was simple because it came up with it. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
but I don't think in '78 this was probably new. That's the reason
I don't think it was new either. We're trying to say is that the specific focus on our hero or protagonist, dedication to the details and the self-discipline required in order to get there. This is a staple of this entire genre of movie. And so if you were to get into Kung Fu, then you are actually going into a movie like this with a very particular expectation. The same way that you have particular expectations about like Westerns. Here's how you approach these kind of movies in the future for you, but also for any of our listeners, that this is kind of what you're going to get from Kung Fu movies.
Yeah. So I'd mentioned to Dustin earlier about that I was mad at him for my son jumping off the island yesterday. But in all honesty, it was a reminder to me of how like important it is for me to expose him to new things. He is 4 and he is clearly he's on the spectrum. You know, children with autism have highly specific interest. And so if he really likes something, like right now it's been dinosaurs, he loves it. Mm-hmm. And so, I mean, I can put on a certain show that like 1,000 other kids might like, and he is not going to like that show. And so for some reason, yesterday when I put on that movie, he was like encaptured. I took pictures and I sent them. They were so cute. Like he put down his little dinosaurs. He was leaned back. He was focused. That got in my head just watching him. I was like, you know what? Maybe I should like sign him up for that. Like that would be something, you know, good for him to be in with other groups of children to learn, you know, like how to follow directions, you know, the important, you know, the skills that he needs, you know, all those needs that are not necessarily getting met in school. And I was like, this could be an outlet for that. And so, like I said, I just know as an autistic person, I tend to keep myself in very rigid boxes, like I said, in movies that I watch. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. That's one of the reasons, like, I don't wanted to do this, because when I was younger, I did actually used to watch a whole lot more movies than I do now. You just, as the older you get, the more you just get into what you get into, you know, and especially if you're autistic, you stay there. And so this is like just a really good reminder to me that I need to expose him to like multiple different things, because I don't know what his special interests might be, you know? And so, I mean, I would do the same thing, encourage the same thing to all parents. Like, you know, if you've got a child who suspects on the spectrum and like something's not catching their interest, maybe try like a new genre of movie, because like you never know, it might be like their jam, you know?
I got to tell you, just based on what you said right there, this is where it rings true for me. This is one of the most poignant, kind of, I don't want to call it a hidden plot point because it's not, but one of the really understated plot points of Polar Express is I truly believe like there are things that I can't hear the bell anymore. Like I've let some things go where you forget what it's like to be a child, to be a young person. You don't hear the bell anymore, and you overlook things. I was literally driving my daughter home from school one day, and for whatever reason, I had the theme song to Scooby-Doo stuck in my head. And so I'm saying Scooby-Doo-Doo, and she's in the car seat behind me, and she goes, "Daddy, what's a Scooby-Doo?" And I was like, only the perfect show for you ever. She loves, she wants to watch horror movies with her mother and I. We clearly don't let her do that, but she likes spooky things. She loves Halloween. And I'm sitting there like a sack of potatoes hit me across the face. Like, we're going to go home right now, and we're going to find where you can watch old school Scooby-Doo. And I'm telling you, not only does she love it, but that's 6 months ago. She's watched, I think, every single Scooby-Doo everything at this point. And we're having a 5th birthday party, Scooby-Doo party. Wonderful. So, but it's one of those things, it doesn't dawn on you. Like you just don't hear the bell ring anymore, and until it, you know, smacks you across the face. So no, I totally get it. I think that exposure is the best thing, because if you don't expose them to a variety of things, if you keep them in a box, then they'll always stay in that box.
Well, it's a cool situation that you describe about when you can notice what your child is into. And your example, Bryan, about like, oh, I don't hear the bell anymore, there's a lot of wonder that we lose as we grow up. But it makes me wonder, have either of you two ever done any yoga or yoga classes?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Not in person though. I'll lean pretty heavily into Peloton.
I said in rehab.
Yeah. Okay. Awesome.
Real.
Well, I've done yoga quite a bit as well, and I've only done 2 sessions in person, but I've done maybe 200 or 300 sessions at home or with former partners. But the idea is, what's really common is to be able to like put on a video or even on your phone, and essentially what you're doing is you're mirroring the forms of this yoga. You're taking time to breathe, taking time to focus, allowing sweat, allowing the balance poses for a minute and a half, whatever it is. And that is a nice, peaceful kind of way of learning, of a practice. And so it sounds like for your little boy is that this exact same kind of concept, although instead of stretching and downward dog and vinyasa, instead of yoga concepts, that the exact same thing is true for Kenpo or karate or Taekwondo, is that first 3 minutes, that artistic thing you were talking about of, oh, wow, that's really pretty. That kata, I mean, it has been, I'm going to go with, it's been 18 years since I last did a full kata, but I've got friends who it's also been like 10, 15 years for them, but they still know them by heart.
Tai Chi, man.
And so this is something where if you have noticed that like, wow, it got him to look up from his dinosaurs. This is something where I was given 2 books at age 11 and 12 of essentially forms of how to mimic these movements. And you open them up. It's the same thing like in this movie where they're sitting down at desks and they're reading through books of what a particular form should look like. And they're practicing it. The teacher's coming through and saying, no, your arm should be like this. It should be like this. That is something that I took time doing in my backyard in Tennessee back in, year 1998, is that there's something to practice, there's an ideal form of what you can look like and how you can achieve that. And whether or not you have a strict Shaolin teacher or you're just reading from a book, the idea that this discussion could come into like, oh, there's actually practical implications. Yeah, this movie takes place 600 years ago. But as far as can there be communal practice of martial art together, hey, I'm not some like kung fu junkie like that. I'm just like, I appreciate this for what it shows. But through this conversation, there could be all types of applications for your kids or, how you find out what your loved ones are into. It's the same exact concept as yoga.
Or just in new movies to watch and not have to watch dinosaurs 32,000 times a day.
Oh, for sure, yeah.
I can get down with these moves. You know what I mean? I might start doing them too and lose some weight. Who knows?
Well, imagine if screen time, the dreaded screen time, was actually practice time. Yeah,
no, because we do exercise videos on YouTube, and so that's actually like a really good idea.
Yeah,
because when he comes home from school, he's been locked in a classroom all day, and he is like he is like a dog with the freaking zoomies. You know what I mean? Like out of control.
We have to at least talk about the chambers. We have to talk about the rooms, like how he has moved from understanding or practice from one chamber to the next. Bryan, I'll start with you. Which of these chambers or which of these like move sets did you find was like, oh man, that scene was so cool? If we're talking about action, or if we're talking about like introspection, the things he learns about himself.
I would have had the most trouble with the headbutt sequence.
The hanging
personally, like, yeah, dude. I was like, this is just brutal. And then you see the abbot of that class, and he's got like massive contusions on his head.
Yeah.
Like almost, I would attribute it in the same way that you see like cauliflower ear in a UFC fighter.
Exactly.
And I'm like, oh man, that sucks. Like,
that guy's been the headroom for a very long time.
It actually reminded me of a part in Down Periscope where, the electrician guy keeps electrocuting himself and like he's very addled due to it. And it's like, man, that boy's absorbed a lot of voltage. I'm like, God, the CTE on this abbot has got to be high.
Yeah. Well, and all of the different chambers have their own like small personality. These are vignettes, barely even scenes, but they all have their very particular purpose. It's not just the sandbags, but then afterwards you have to collect yourself enough to grab the incense and then put it in front of the Buddha in order to give your offering. Like there's always a reminder that you do this for a reason. And when our main character, Sante, says, is down on the floor and he's talking about how hard it is, the abbot of that space says, hey, after this, you get to learn swords and sticks and weapons. And that immediately gives him okay, I'm going through this. He becomes the best at it. When it comes to like the chambers that he moved through, which one of these chambers stood out to you?
I think a lot of the other ones are great non-violent ways to show that balance matters, dexterity matters. I mean, the reading between the lines of a lot of these chambers were very, very potent. But yeah, 1,000 concussions. House of 1,000 concussions is somewhere I'd pass.
So yeah, I mean, this could be as simple as the in order to go to the food hall, you have to have the dexterity to bounce across the floating logs, or it could be the pole chamber where you have to have the manual dexterity to spin the wheels with your pole without cutting your forearms, and then out of nowhere, the head of that chamber is going to come in with his pole and start attacking everybody. Like, which one of these chambers was like, oh, this is fun to see on screen?
Was they were running over the logs in the water?
Yeah.
Okay, so this is like something I made a mental connection with. You know how on the show American Ninja Warrior, that's like literally one of their training things. Like all the time, it kind of looks like the Wipeout, So I was like, American Ninja Warrior was taking from the Kung Fu, whatever, like of having to run and do the casino ninjas. Yeah.
Right.
Anyways. And I like just for like, I don't know. I just thought it was like for obviously the budget and for what it was. Like I thought they like really did a good job with like the cameras and the angles. You know what I mean? Just to like make it more interesting than just having to run like straight across like a little bridge. They like would go down to the foot level so you could see how steep it was. And then when he goes in the air, he launches up like he's like Super Mario. It was really cute. And the slow-mo, I mean, I just thought like the effects of that, like even though like I know like it was made in 1980, but just like how they put it together.
There's also discipline to that too. If you fail, then you have to dry your clothes. You are not allowed in the mess hall with dirty clothes.
Right.
So, like everything has a lesson, and everything has its reason for being the way that it is. Shortcuts are not permitted, and that's another lesson that you take out from this movie or this genre, and you take it to your life. Is what does he say? He goes to he sees that the yellow robed monks are walking along the grass path. Right? He sees that, and he's I know what I'll do. I'll just hop the fence and go over that way. And he gets knocked in the head. And I think what he says is, "Wall is short, but Buta's vision is tall," or something like that. Hey, no shortcuts here. The chamber that I felt was the most captivating to me at first was the wrist chamber. The idea that you have to hold this weight at the end of a bamboo shoot. And it might seem so simple. And what you have to do is hit the gong at the same time that I hit my wooden fish. And just there's cinematography to this that is like, oh, you can see the pain. You can see the willingness to like persevere through this in order to make your wrists strong. And I don't know if either you guys weight train or anything, but there's a reason why there's so many different types of exercises. If you remember from when we did The Legend of Drunken Master, that character had already trained. But it's in the first movie where he's, in order to strengthen his wrists, he's doing push-ups on the backsides of his hands. And also he's grabbing chestnuts and pinching them between his forefinger and thumb in order to strengthen like all the things you need to be a complete martial artist. There's so many creative ways this movie can do it and the genre can do it. And I could talk for hours about this, y'all, but I feel like we got to get to our superlatives. You guys ready? All right, well then, we're ready for our first superlative. Jennifer, give me your MVP of the 36th Chamber of Shaolin.
San-Yao Liu.
Yeah, just getting to see his voyage through all of this. Bryan,
really
who's your MVP?
He was a really good actor, like through and through, like from the beginning to the end. Just solid. I'm giving it to him.
I completely concur. I think that this is really a movie, the emphasis put on this one person's journey. And if that person fumbles it, then it doesn't work. So yeah, I'm going to go the same way.
And that's 3 for 3. I also believe Gordon Liu knocked this out of the park. The character, he had to play a young version of himself. He had to play the version in the monastery. And then he has to come through as the enlightened. Like when he has finished his training and he's kind of collecting his posse. We didn't talk about this at all. Frankly, the way this movie's put together is I don't think we have enough time with sort of his
No,
group
agreed.
at the end. That could have been great to see. And guess what, y'all? There's a second and a third in this trilogy. There's plenty more where this comes from. So if you like Gordon Liu, then you've got a new guy to check out when it comes to scrolling through your Netflix or whatever it is.
Is he going to be like my new David Tennant? You know, like when I found David Tennant and like I went on a whole David Tennant binge for like 6 months.
That's completely up to you. That's
I just told you when I get
completely
obsessed with people, like really go for it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Who's your best supporting actor, Jennifer?
Okay, like I was gonna say the teacher because I just really liked him, but I'm gonna go with the monks. I've always loved monks. I don't know why in every movie they're in, but usually in movies, and monks are always like so serious, like they don't smile, they don't whatever. And these monks had like character.
Yeah.
Like they like you saw them as humans, not as these like unhuman, like godly men that just you saw funny sides of them. And I'm like, I mean, I'm sure they are funny. Like I know they don't talk, but they like I'm sure they're like being funny with each other with signs. So I'm giving it to the monks. Gotta love
Good
a monk.
decision. Cool. Bryan, who's your best supporting?
I really like Teacher Ho Wang Wei. He's your initial guy, the one who's like not letting him cheat and stuff like that. I dug that guy.
Yeah, I also did. I mean, there's not too much screen time with any particular actor.
Right.
For me, I have to go with Hoi-Sang Lieh, who played the Justice Abbot. He's the guy that challenges Sante to say, once you defeat me, you can take one of these rooms. And
Right.
I really did not expect it to be come back to him. And he also has, strangely, like a very peaceful face that kind of belies this inner discipline. And like, it might not seem like it, but I'm much more of a badass than you thought I could be.
Well, I think the really important thing with him too is he could have been the jealous teacher who doesn't think he should come up that quickly. It really wasn't about that. It was a lesson in and of itself that he was really trying to help him. Because I feel like the usual thing is like, oh, I'm jealous of you, so when you beat me, then you won.
Right. Is that they are not, the monks are not all knowing. They know what best practices can lead to progress, and in this case, progress innovation with the 3-section staff. A brand new weapon created. Just something kind of neat. Even though our roles were small, those are our best supporting actors. What's your hidden gem here, Jennifer?
Man, then I should have said the monks, and I should have gone with the teacher on the last one. Because, no, I'm going to go with the best friend that we figured out he never had a name.
Yeah,
best
early.
Friend.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Funny.
helping his friend escape town. Bryan, what's your hidden gem
killed
here?
way too soon. But go ahead.
So the abbot of the staff chamber, Lung Chan, he was actually in Legend of Fong Tae-yuk 2, which was a early Jet Li movie. Had one of my favorite female protagonists in one of these things. Anyway, I was just like, oh man, that's like a young him.
Yeah.
So anyway, it was a weird tangent that I went on, and those two movies, Tae-yuk 1 and 2, were a lot of fun.
Well, and that's an awesome gem because now I, as a fan of this genre, am going to like go search these out. You find one person that you enjoy their performance, you want to see it again. In this instance, for me, the hidden gem, they call it. If you watch the trailer, they call it the boxing chamber. But when he's learning his hand-to-hand fist fighting, he has to fight like 6, 7, 8 guys in a row in order to sort of get to the end of this. And I think the thing that was neat is about the second or third person he fights, he begins swinging his arms where his arms are stiff. He's not bending at the elbow. And this is a recognizable style that you see in other kung fu films. And I recognized it as the exact same style that Fishmonger Sang uses in, one of my favorites, the Drunken Master series. So not only is the martial art beautiful, but it's practiced, it's real. You can learn it, and so you can see it. And if you recognize it, then you can recognize it in other movies. I got to bring up the thing that you had said about that character, the best friend, early.
Mm-hmm.
As Bryan is our regular Wu-Tang fan of the Wu-Tang Clan, there is something that RZA loves this movie. He brings up his stories about New York theaters for $1.50. He's watching kung fu movie after kung fu movie after kung fu movie from 9 a.m. until they close. Him and his best friends. One of the things that I was listening to an interview he was giving about the importance of this movie. He was talking about the struggle of the inner city and about how the downtrodden and the oppressed don't have the ability to make it. And how, Jennifer, your hidden gem character, the friend who gives himself up in order for Liu, at the time, Sante, to escape, is the same mentality he wanted to bring to his community, is that we're not all going to make it out. But if I can lay down myself for you to make it, it's worth it. And so when you look at the lessons of this across so many possibilities, it almost makes you feel lighter. It makes you feel like there's something positive to come from there. Jennifer, you had to recast somebody. Who are you recasting?
The horses.
You're recasting the horses?
Yeah. Like a cow.
Okay, sure. Okay,
like I don't. I'm sorry, I don't like when they shoot horses, but like cows are, I live down here by lots of cows and they're really stupid. So like, I don't think they would care if they got shot. They want out of their freaking misery.
What is your recast for this movie?
I would have liked to have seen just some sort of young cameo from one of the up and coming, kung fu movie, main people. I'm not sure where everybody was in 78, but like a young Chia-Yung fat or something like this would be really cool.
Right.
So it's not necessarily a recast, as in I'm taking someone out. It's just a little nod to have a gem in there.
Right. Yeah. Is that the guy who's carrying the cart up to the monastery is Sammo Hung or something like that. Yeah. For me, I found our performances from our generals, our evil generals, their performances weren't bad. They just weren't written well enough that it was separating them from each other, our bad lieutenants. So I thought if I were recasting this today, Disney tried this. Other companies have tried to do this, but it's very hard to put a lovable character into like a bad guy role. I'd love to see our big bad General Tien, the final fight, like on the cliffside. I'd love that character to be played by lovable Jackie Chan, to make him a warlord, to make him very, very bad. And as much as they've tried, it doesn't really work out. And I think he's probably at the age where he's not really doing this anymore. But that would be a dream of mine. Let's move on to cinematography. Jennifer, what's your best shot of this movie?
Oh, and obviously I said already the opening scene.
Opening scene, for sure.
Because like I said, it was like a beautiful dance to me. And like I said, I love choreography. And it was like I said, I just had never looked at it in a way of thinking of it in that kind of manner. And so it just kind of like opened my eyes to it. But I am going to have to say this. Like they could so have done away with body oil. We totally, that's gross, You
know what? I actually agree with you there. And we're lucky that throughout the movie, they do some other very good sweat makeup. As far as
that was the only scene that had that shiny look to it that made you feel like you were back at Chippendales or whatever that place was, like at a 90s bachelorette party, and you wanted
you're pretending like you don't don't remember the name of Chippendales. Sure.
I really couldn't for a minute, y'all. I was like, is it Chippendales or Le Bears? I couldn't remember which one.
Oh, now you're giving us another one too.
Because it really was Le Bears. That's the one I went to, and all I remember was Axe body spray. And so when at first when I saw the shiny body, I was like, oh my gosh, y'all, because tidbit, throw those in there. Magic Mike traumatized me for life. I went with girls, didn't know, and I cried leaving, and I'm never couldn't think about it again. And so when it started out with the shiny body, I was like, oh my gosh, is this going to be naked men with shiny bodies, and I'm going to have to vomit because that stuff freaks me out, So I was so relieved when he started dancing underwater because I was like, okay, he's wet. Literally, he's wet from water. He's not shining like a dolphin in the sea.
I'm glad you even used the word dance. That's what he's doing. Okay, Bryan, what is your best shot?
I really like just when he finally, shows the completion of the water trials with the weird side daggers and stuff. Just the the determination, like he was already in his stride a little bit, but that was just one of those, like, it's the eye of the tiger moment.
And I also thought it was cool the way that he's holding those buckets is that his arms are extended like it's a punch. You're like, hey, this wasn't just discipline. You are learning. Right. You're learning the strength in your arms and the muscle memory for your strikes later on. For me, I did bring up that I thought the chamber, the wrist chamber, was cool. There's a moment where you're seeing Sante's determination, and the master of that room is hitting his wooden fish to make the sound. And then they change the perspective to where you're viewing the gong being struck, and then you see that there are several other young apprentices waiting in line for their turn to strike the gong. And all of them, the way that the shot is from behind, all of them have bruised and bloody wrists. So what we realize is this is not just Sante's journey. It's the journey of many of the monks coming to seek enlightenment, knowing that they need to go through this trial. That was a kind of cool, eye-opening shot. Bryan, what is your favorite scene?
I really like his reintroduction to the world, which starts off with rebels fighting overwhelming forces, and he kind of has a look on his face to start off with, like, oh, almost like I shouldn't be involving myself with this, and then jumps right into it, and then obviously it's an excellent martial arts scene.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, wild that we really didn't spend too much talking about martial arts. We talked about like the themes and the concept and stuff, but yeah, that's a good scene. Go ahead.
I have a favorite relationship.
Yeah,
and that would be Liu with the teacher, like, by far. And maybe that's just because I am a teacher, but I just felt like the way that he like looked up to him, and he looked after him and protected him, and showed him the right way. Like, I just that's what we all think we want to do as teachers.
Well, I wanted to say with scenes, especially with the way that they were rambunctious before teacher Ho arrives, but then once he arrives, they were all quiet, and they actually depending on your translation, whether you got one dub, a different dub, or the subtitles, is that the words are sometimes different. You guys might have watched a movie that has slightly different words than the movie I do. That's just what happens with translation. But they walk to his house and they say, is it okay for me to feel the way that I'm feeling about this oppression? Are we supposed to just do what they tell us, or are we supposed to speak out against it? And they're saying it with reverence and with respect. And that is something that perhaps you have seen, or you've seen a lack of in the classroom, is there is an inherent reverence that must come from parenting or culture that is described in this, or that is shown to us, that I think every teacher would love to come in a little bit ahead of the game, as opposed to, oh, these children have built-in respect for my position, as opposed to having to take energy, effort, and time to instill that respect that you would want from them.
I'm just going to say, look, can I just add this?
Of course.
As a special education teacher, that's where I've spent like the last 12 years of my career. And in high school, I had the same children all 4 years. And so from the very first time they showed up in my class in their ninth grade, they were babies, 14-year-olds, their first day of high school. And they knew that I was going to be their teacher but for the next 4 years, because they'd been in middle school for the same teacher for the previous 3 years. And so I've just been abundantly blessed in my career to never have disrespectful students.
Wonderful.
Like, I never had to have that battle for respect. It was like coming from day one. I think that what's like so important, like I said, about him going to his teacher for advice, is I think that what a lot of people don't realize that so many teachers do, is we completely fill those roles of parents for these children. I give more of myself was giving way more of myself to my students than a lot of my students than I did my own biological children. And so, like, just to see that, like, across the board, like that's like a universal everywhere, that teachers everywhere across the world feel that way about their, students, and their students feel that way about them. I don't know. There's just something special about it. That's all I got to say.
I agree. There is something special. My best scene is the eye training chamber. I thought that was kind of a zag. I was not expecting that from this movie, is that you're going to have to follow this metronome with a candle on it. and I thought that it was really novel. Yeah, this wasn't like crazy, super advanced technology, but it was also shot really well, and he gets a chance to sort of show off all of his skills, and just even the incense on either side of his face, like the stakes didn't have to be turned up for that scene to be great, but I thought that was really neat. Let's move on to our next one here: best wardrobe or makeup moment, Jennifer.
I'm gonna go with just like the opening, like the very opening scene where like they were all gathered, because that was like the very first, like after we got past the dolphin slippery man, where they're holding the trial. You know what I'm saying? Like that just very opening scene, like with everybody's like wardrobe or whatever, it like just set the tone of like where I knew I was going to be and like where we were going with this. This is not going to be some stupid 1980s, because like I did, like literally I thought we might be in the 80s, like in current time. I had no idea we were going to the past. I had no idea we were like fighting for a war.
The wardrobe sets up the atmosphere for where you're going to be for the next 2 hours. That makes total sense to me. What's your best wardrobe or makeup moment, Bryan?
I'm going with the iconic Buddhist orange robe. I like it's just a staple. It's got to be my thing.
And then the prayer beads as well. And there's only slight difference between like levels of hierarchy, provided any hierarchy exists. Even the head abbot still refers to his others as brothers. So I thought that you're absolutely right. I am going to give a nod to that first leg injury he has in escaping from Tang and getting up there. I rarely comment on like the makeup, especially with like gory or horror movies, but that is a nasty looking leg wound, and they really make it like, oh, it's going to be hard for you to get up there.
It reminded me very much of the first Night of the Living Dead.
Mm-hmm. A lot of color on that leg. Okay, A couple left. If you have to change one thing, Jennifer, what are you changing?
The ending was a little anticlimactic.
Mm-hmm.
I think I'm maybe wanted like a little bit more, you know what I mean, of the action there, like at the end. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, we have the elimination of Tang immediately in the cemetery fighting scene. We have the elimination of Cheung, which is also a big giant fight with a lot of different people in it, which is pretty good. He defeats that guy, and all the rest of the guards just run away. And then you have another. You isolate General Tien from the rest of his army just by dumping flour on them. And I bring all this up because we have this kind of group, the blacksmith, the miller, and a guy that works with bamboo. We don't really get any time with them. So I think I see what you're saying about the ending being a little anticlimactic. I'm not going to argue with you there. Bryan, what's your change one thing?
I actually agree with the ending. I thought that especially how they cut it was ultra abrupt. And
you're right.
And maybe some setup to where it goes from there would have been appropriate. But I will say it's already a 2-hour movie, which is surprising with the age of the film. So I mean, like I get it, but I just felt like they needed some better wrap up. It was very, very halting.
Yeah, I think for myself, I'm kind of going in the same direction, which is a tough decision, because I think we need far less time and description before the monastery and way more after. Is that if we're going to add more to the post-monastery, monk in a turbulent place, then we got to get rid of some of the stuff that's early. And I think setting up the classic trope of oppressive forces here, we got to get rid of it. It means we lose the assassination attempt. It means we lose all of our good time with Teacher Ho and the respect that they give him. So it's a tough choice, but I would really shift all the attention to after the monastery. That would be, I think, helpful for me. Let's finish it up with the best quote here, Jennifer.
I'm not going to be able to say it verbatim, because like apparently I didn't do my homework and came up with the actual words. But it was the teacher scene, where the one that you just literally talked about, where he went and talked to his teacher.
Is it okay for us to stand up for what we believe in? Yeah, that it is a cool scene too. Bryan, what's your best quote?
I should have learned kung fu instead of ethics.
It's good. Yeah, that's right. That quote. My quote is, Tang is saying, they're like, you're a monk, you wouldn't kill me, right? And he says, even Buddha has to conquer evil. So there's good stuff in here beyond. I mean, we talked about concepts today far more than we talked about the movie itself. But thing is, I love this show for that reason, is that we can really connect beyond the movie content itself. So Jennifer, I'd like to ask you for our rating. Remember, it's out of 5 stars, 1 being the lowest, 5 being the highest. You can use half-star intervals if you want. What is your star rating for 36 Camber of Shaolin?
Like, I hate this question. Do you know that? Because that is such a gray area. Like, are we talking about within the genre or like overall in my life? Because like these questions are so hard for me.
Well, we're not really asking you to rank it, just what you, in terms of quality, what you think it is.
For whatever it was, I'm going to give it all the stars, because I'm just telling you, I was shocked and surprised, and I rarely am surprised about anything. And I was so pleasantly surprised about the whole thing. I was surprised about the plot. I was like the feel of it and everything. And like I said, and my son enjoyed it. And so overall, it was just like a really great experience. We're going to be watching more now because I'm like fed up with like, Blippi. So yeah, I'm going to give it all the stars.
Okay, all the stars. It's a pretty good rating there. Bryan, how do you rate 36 Camber of Shaolin?
I went solid 4 out of 5 on this one. It's entertaining. It's OG. I really enjoyed it again. And I just think it's a solid 4-star movie.
I think it's solid as well. I didn't go full 5 stars. I went 4.5. Obviously, if you've listened to me for the last nearly 2 hours, you know that I hold this genre in pretty high respect, high regard. For Kung Fu movies, it is a 5-star, but outside of Kung Fu movies, there are certain things that we determined together, like, hey, the ending was abrupt and there wasn't enough time here. And there's a little bit of the characters that are confusing. And that's all enough to detract a little bit from me. The story was a little unclear with who is on what side as far as, for the monastery. And our cohort of potential apprentices, they don't get enough screen time at the end. That being said, I think that's where, Bryan, when you say, hey, it's OG, it is. And there's a reason that it holds the regard that it does among so many communities. Great time with you guys. We need to choose a movie for next time. Bryan, can you help me?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. We have John Wayne coming here to town. Get on your cowboy boots and hat and prepare yourself for option number 1 from 1969, True Grit. A drunken, hard-nosed U.S. Marshal and a Texas Ranger help a stubborn teenager track down her father's murderer in Indian Territory. Option number 2, from 1956, The Searchers. An American Civil War veteran embarks on a years-long journey to rescue his niece from the Comanches after the rest of his brother's family is massacred in a raid on their Texas farm. Or option number 3, from 1959, Rio Bravo. A small-town sheriff in the American West enlists the help of a disabled man, a drunk, and a young gunfighter in his efforts to hold in jail the brother of the local bad guy. What's it going to be?
I think I got to go for option 2, The Searchers, 1956.
Which I have not seen, but another movie I know is very, very impactful as far as the movie landscape. Thank you both for indulging me here. It's Kung Fu time when it's my dealer's choice. So, Jennifer, I really liked talking with you about this.
Yeah.
Yeah, pleasure meeting you.
Yeah, for sure.
And Bryan, we got to keep dropping the names of these Kung Fu movies in the chat so that we can catch
certainly.
up. Yeah. Thank you, all the lords, ladies, and knights of the Retro Movie Roundtable. We invite you to reach out to us. We want to hear from you. Subscribe, rate, and review to us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Pandora, or wherever you get your podcasts. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. Give us a like on Facebook. Follow us on Instagram and Twitter at movie_retro. Email us at retromovieroundtable@yahoo.com. Producing and providing this podcast is fun, but not free. We invite you to support the show at our Patreon page at www.patreon.com/retromovieroundtable. Any contribution is much appreciated and will go toward making the show better for you, the listeners. As always, thank you for listening. Be good to each other and watch more movies. Bryan?
They look like 2 gravediggers taking one of their customers for a walk.